Good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum. And also Happy New Year for those of us who are celebrating the Islamic New Year today. Thank you for having me, Malay Heritage Center, in conjunction with the Budidaya exhibition. Like what Encik Nora said earlier, and I hope I know what I'm talking about today. I've done this a couple of times, but I thought it'd be nice to do this because part of the Budidaya is the whole idea of graciousness. So that's very much part of the Malay culture. Well, the title today is Sacred Sirih, Tradition and Symbolism in the Malay World. So we see here two 18th century Belgian prints. So one is the Piper betel. Let me just write down, that's the scientific name. Also known as Sirih. I hope you can see from the back. Yeah. Sirih. And typically when we say Sirih, is always sort of followed by the word Pinang. So it's almost, there is this close association. So we have the print of Sirih here, Piper betel, and then we have the Pinang, also known as areca nut. So it's a scientific name. Just want to write down areca catechu. I hope you can. Pinang, areca nut, sometimes called the betel nut. But it's a bit of a misnomer because the betel plant does not produce any nut. And this is not even a nut, it's actually a seed. So we call it, so it's a Pinang and a Sirih. Pinang and Sirih is interesting because it has this sort of a harmony or sort of a balance between the two. Because one, in the universal understanding of food in Southeast Asia, this is known to be cold and this is supposed to be hot. So it's like yin and yang, right? Hot and cold. So I've been studying and collecting Sirih set and also Sirih paraphernalia for a while now. How did I start to get interested in Sirih? I'll show you an image here. This is taken in 1962. I must have started somewhere, way before I even appeared here, in some waiting room somewhere, watching this in the scene here, 4 elderly ladies on the eve of my parents' wedding. Okay, this is my great-grandmother. This is next door at Gedung Kuning. My great-grandma with 3 of her good friends. She was the matriarch of an Arab Peranakan family. And we have here, this is the wife of a well-known Islamic scholar. So take note of the dress and the headdress. Very interesting. Yeah, we don't see this anymore. And in the background, she was the official inviter, the person who would typically be assigned to hantar Sirih instead of of an invitation card. The RSVP was the Sirih set itself. So I'm in somewhere in the waiting room and watching this picture here, 4 ladies. They pick up this leaf here from this receptacle, and they were applying some ingredients and folding it and putting it in their mouth, with grace and nuance. And before I knew it, there was one of the ladies actually had the saliva, blood red, that was placed into this container here, this spittoon. And it dawned on me, this is Sirih chewing tradition. So I'll come back to that. So I was told by my parents that as a kid, when I made my appearance eventually, as a toddler, I was really notorious for tossing and turning my great-grandmother's Sirih set. So you can ask my mom, she's here, she will tell you that story, quite bad toddler. Perhaps that was my way of saying, I like this, but that's how I express it by having lots of fun with making a mess of all the various ingredients in the Sirih set. Fast forward many years, by the time I was 8, I had a different role. I'm frequently given the task to replenish my great-grandmother's Sirih container. We have a lot of, long before the days of 7-Eleven, all this mama shop, corner shop. So it's easily, all these ingredients were easily available. And by the time I was a teenager, I marvel at the families, they had a family armor with all the silverware. But I look at all this material and I say, you know what? You only get to see them when there's a wedding. So I was really interested to know more about the story, the tradition behind the origin of Sirih, beyond its material value. So I thought it's good to start by looking at the Malay archipelago, where the Sirih practice was quite prominent. So I thought it was good just to take a look at this, the various subgroups in the Malay world. And here I'm using a cultural definition of Malay. It stretches the distance of London all the way to Baku, right? Beyond Moscow. That's how wide the archipelago is. Yeah? And of course, this doesn't include places up north that would include, the Alisan, the Aborigines of the Taiwanese. So the map that we saw earlier, the Southeast Asia, also known as Nanyang, was also known all the way back during Tang period as the land of the Pinang chewers. So Pinang being the Chinese word for Penang. So it says something about this being a commodity that was supplied from this part of the world and made its way all the way to northern China. So, so Mahwan was one of the companions, one of the voyages, and he did a couple of voyages with Ching Ho. He said, men and women take areca nut and betel leaf and mix with lime, made from clam shells. Well, clam shells are easily available because we're all sort of coastal riverine people. The mouth are never without this mixture. When they receive passing guests, they entertain not with tea, but with Sirih. So that the first thing you do, as a sign that you're welcome, you will be served with a Sirih set. So that's for early 15th century. And then came the European. So one of the earliest Europeans, Antonio Pigafetta, who was with Magellan in the Philippines and Borneo, and also the Moluccas, he also experienced the same thing. Right? He experienced the people were constantly chewing because it was such a ubiquitous sight to the point that he believed the moment you stop in the chewing Sirih, you will die. What about the Dutch? The earliest Dutch fleet that landed in Java also experienced this. And he said, this was so central, especially in the royal courts. Yeah? The Arabs were equally perplexed. The Arabs, said, this is just such an interesting culture, even though Avicenna had written in the 12th century that areca, the areca nut, was a part of European pharmacology. So one of the earliest European that made its way to Ayutthaya, the court in Thailand, saw this same practice, and he was like, he was curious. So he asked the people in the courts, what's this all about? And apparently, the ideal sense of beauty is to have black stained teeth. Yeah? And they told him, only dogs and ghosts have white teeth. And Europeans. Yeah? Yeah. So let's take a look at the origin of Sirih. So how and where did it got started? The earliest record of Sirih can be found in 4th century AD Indian texts. There is none in the Malay region. However, if you look at the diversity of the word itself, it tells you, it suggests that it is very much a Southeast Asian tradition, a tradition that transcends that kind of cuts across all barriers, whether it's racial, whether it's gender, whether it's wealth. It's a very egalitarian sort of activity. It's like playing football. It doesn't matter who you are, right? So it brings people together. And we look at this, I've listed down here, from English all the way to some of these languages in the Philippines, which is a northern extension of the Malay world. And look at Areca and Penang. This is this whole range. Compared to in India, they only have cognates of the word pan, which is betel, and supari. Yeah, okay. And Sirih also, and you know how this part of the world has always been Indianized. But we look at the word Sirih, it is not a Sanskrit word. Okay? So again, suggesting that it developed independently. Of course, we are well aware right now the nation that's still practicing would be India and Burma today. To some extent, to a lesser extent, maybe in Laos and Vietnam. And then what about the fact that the Chinese term in Tang period, and Tang is the contemporary of Srivijaya. So that's how far back it is. And no wonder Peter Bellwood, who's he's an Australian archaeologist, he said the cognates of Sirih are among the oldest words among Austronesian languages. So, let's take a look at some of the archaeological evidence as well, right? So we look at linguistic. What about the earliest archaeological evidence was found in the Spirit Cave in Thailand. They found, using carbon dating, 10,000 BC Penang. Yeah? And skeletons. This is a famous skeleton from Palawan in Duyong Cave. 3000 BC, they found a skeleton and the teeth are still intact, all stained with the chemical reaction when you chew Sirih. Peter Bellwood again said, now, if you want to study human migration from what is today out of southern China through Taiwan to Philippines and down south to the Nusantara area, Sirih would be one of those things that you could use to study. And also, from the botanical point of view, two plants, the pinang, which is kind of palm, and the palm that we know very well, the coconut palm. These are the two of the oldest domesticated plants that originated from the Malay archipelago. So that led Bellwood to conclude that Sirih must have been an integral part of the identity of Austronesian culture. The most compelling evidence would be the Dongsong bronze. I think some of you have sent a Dongsong object. I've highlighted this in red because I want to talk about it again. Dongsong, you don't find Dongsong drum in the Indian subcontinent, but you do find from central Vietnam all the way down to Java. And it's a big mystery. People yet to understand, who were these people, what were the roles of all these objects. But they found cylindrical leaded containers that looks like this, looks like the moko in Java, that's filled with, this is the lime box, but this is Laotian. Yeah? They found similar ones like this, just dedicated in a container for lime. And then there's also the presence of Bronze Age. This is not Bronze Age. I wish I have one that's Bronze Age. This is not. This is spatula. So they found lots of this. When they dug out, it's clearly it comes with a handle. It is flat for the purpose of spreading. Yeah. Also from the Bronze Age period. Okay. So, what does it mean? What does it mean to chew Sirih in the Malay world? I think the answer lies in the characteristic of the various ingredients. So let's take a look at this. What do they symbolize in the Malay world? And the Sirih, we know Sirih is a vine. It will cling on to anything, a tree, a stake, a tree stump. It's not picky. It will make its way up. And when it's mature, it provides shade as well. So to the Malay, Sirih is always associated with humility, with giving and being respectful, because it is not a parasite. It doesn't. The host plant will not be affected by its climbing. Yeah. Look at the pinang tree here. It's tall. I was trying to get some pinang for this morning, but unfortunately, I had to wait for a really, a stormy, rainy day, because it's always after the storm that I can get pinang on the ground, because there's no way I can climb this. So it's upright here, tall, and you know what? It promises a profusion of a fruit. So to the Malay, pinang symbolizes honesty, good manners, and also high moral value and a determination to excel given a task. What about lime? Right? So this is the process of making lime. As you can see, you have the lime in this place in the middle. These are all shells that you only pick the white ones, and you can sort of, you pound it, pulverize it, and then you apply some water. It's called slake lime because it's thirsty. It needs to be slaked, quenched. And we know that it's white, so it symbolizes purity, pure-heartedness, sincerity. But calcium carbonate, and you introduce water, it becomes calcium hydroxide. Calcium hydroxide, as we know, in small quantity is great, but where there's too much, it gets caustic. So likewise, when provoked, you can be assertive or aggressive. Let's take a look at gambhir. Now, gambhir looks like this. It's a little. I brought some. I'll get to pass around later. It looks like lozenges like this. It's kind of solid, but it's such an arduous process to create this. First of all, you need to pluck the leaves from this plant called Encaria gambhir. So this plant produces a special leaf that you have to pluck in a big amount, put it in the cauldron, and fill up with water and boil for a very long time, where it will release its sap. Okay? So once you've done that, with prolonged, a reduction sort of, boiling, it will change its viscosity. When it's thick enough, you pour it into in sort of a mold, typically made of bamboo slices, and you let it set, and then you dry it. So it's an enormous amount of work, so much so that this is what we think when we think of gambhir: perseverance, hard work, and patience.